Welcome from Berlin, where we have here the brand new Sony XPeria Z5 Premium on the right with the Note 5 in comparison by Samsung on the left. This was already announced a few weeks ago and came out, but now Sony is just pulling ahead with a brand new display that has a 4K resolution, and we have still the waterproof features that we have seen in the last Z series, in the last years here with Sony. So we have a 5.5-inch device by Sony versus a Samsung device with 5.7 inches and a stylus. A stylus is still a feature that a lot of people want, or maybe don't want. They just want this beautiful device and not use the stylus ever. So you have to decide for yourself which is more important. So that's one of the reasons to buy a Note is the stylus. Here it's waterproofness. Let's go over a few more things that make these two a little bit different. Like, for example, Sony has dual front speakers, so you have here a speaker and here a speaker for really awesome sound. Samsung has a speaker here and here, but this one is only for media and for music, and this is only for phone calls, which is a little bit sad. Otherwise, you have here the home button with the fingerprint reader built in and Android buttons. Here on the front also, here with Sony we have the fingerprint reader actually on the side where the on and off switch is, which is also quite nice to just have it right at your thumb, or if you're left-handed at your other fingers, and also dedicated camera button, but they don't have any buttons on the front except for on the screen, so you really have to use the buttons that Android supports you here with on the front. Before we continue with the software a little bit, like the camera review, that's why I have a few things here in the background. We will check out here the back, which are also actually a little bit similar here on both, because we have, for example, with the Samsung a complete glossy device as with the Sony a premium. The Z5 and the Z Compact, the Z5 Compact and the Z5 don't have glossy covers, but since this is a premium device for Asia, actually also they love, I think, this kind of design, and they probably will love the Sony Z5 that they did it this way. Otherwise, both have micro USB, the headset jacks, and everything is the same, but let's just put them on top of each other to see really, for example, in terms of thinness, how they differ. But actually the Sony is a little bit thicker with 7.8 millimeters versus 7.6. Let me just get them a little bit closer to you guys, and then you can decide for yourself which you like better. But actually we have, of course, also on both metal covers all around, so the metal border is real on both devices here again on the side and on top. This is how they look like. Here's the nano SIM card slot actually for the Samsung. It doesn't have a micro SD card slot, which the Sony, for example, has, so you don't have to decide how big of a memory you want inside. Both are available with 32, the Samsung also with 64, but for example Sony only has 32, but you can upgrade with up to 200 gigs right now for not that much money, and I think that's a lot better of a deal than just having to decide for yourself at the beginning how much battery you want. Otherwise, the battery is also bigger in the Z5 Premium with 3430 milliamps, not only 3000 like you will find in the Note 5, which has actually a bigger screen, so it could drain faster. So we went all around here, but let's just check out the back again with the cameras that are again also different, with the 23 megapixel here in the Sony, and with single flash, and only 16 in the Note 5, which is sticking out, and the Sony is not sticking out at all. It looks like it, but actually it's really completely flat here and quite nice to look at. And also here single flash and a health sensor, which is just for your heart rate, and I'm not sure if you definitely need that, but I would say that's just some extra gimmick that Samsung put in there. We don't really need it. You can already see here my fingerprints on both devices, since that's happening just really way too quickly here on any of these new smartphones with the glossy covers. So enough talk about the outside, let's try them out here after unlocking them, for example with the camera. But before we do the camera, let's just do a little bit of testing here in terms of, come on, speed, when we can just go back and forth. So you guys can already see that this is looking quite nice. We have here the Exynos 7420 inside with octa-core, so 8 cores, as we have 8 cores in the Sony with the Snapdragon 810. 3 gigs of RAM and 4 gigs of RAM in the Samsung, so a little bit more there, but if it's getting slower, then the RAM doesn't mean anything anyhow. So we were able to see already here also a little glitch when I just went a little bit more to the left. We will open up on both a browser and check those out to just show you guys a little bit the camera, the keyboard. Sorry about that. So the Chrome browser should be alright, and you can see here that you can just turn these around and both seem exactly to be in the same speed, so the sensors are well tuned here on both. Let's continue with the camera. Ignore this and a little error, since it's a pre-production device. This happens sometimes. It tells us that we don't have any network, but it's alright. So in the front you guys can see that we have on the left here a nice wide angle by Samsung. On the right it's not that good actually. We are not zoomed in on either of them, but what you can definitely see is that the display is a little bit brighter on Samsung than on the Sony, and both have the maximum brightness. Actually, I can show you that later, that we really set that up with maximum brightness, but both have actually also a 5 megapixel sensor on the front. I haven't even mentioned that, so the sensor on the front should be the same, but if you turn them around you will see that I think the Sony is winning there, at least it was before, since the wide angle on the Sony is just a lot better on the back camera, and I use actually the back camera a lot more, but you can see again the display is not as bright. So what we'll do now is shoot on both a picture, which is quite hard because they are so long, so I just have to grab them like this, and let's just take the same picture at the same time. Sony seemed to be a little bit slower. Let's do it again. And let's check out the results. For example, here the little magazine has some subtext here below the "come on." For example, we can a little bit barely read that there. It says Sony. Let's try it on the Sony smartphone, where you can't even zoom in that far, but yeah, even though we have more megapixels, it doesn't seem to be as good of a resolution, but you can definitely see that there's more in the picture, not only in terms of the smartphones that are on the table, but to the top, bottom, and left and right. And what's also more is that there seems to be, there's not more detail on the Sony, but it's definitely not as bright on the screen. But we'll have to check it out with the final screen that ships, of course, also in a few weeks in October. So this was already my short little comparison video. Not much more to show you guys in terms of hardware and specs. You have to just try them out both for yourself in terms of battery life. That's what I have to do now in the next few days. Also, thank you much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you much for watching.